Thanks for checking out Measure What Matters, 7 KPIs to get more ROI from your marketing. Just a quick definition of terms to get started. KPIs are key performance indicators. In other words, how do you know if you're successful or not with your marketing? And ROI is return on investment, because marketing is an investment that you need a return on. So today's mission, should you decide to accept it, is that you're going to walk away from this presentation knowing how much to spend on marketing, where to spend on marketing, and when to spend where on marketing. And first of all, let's answer number one really quickly. How much to spend on marketing? So the SBA, Small Business Administration, says that 7 to 8% of gross revenues should be put toward marketing. And this is for companies $5 million a year and smaller in revenue. So 7 to 8%, let's do the math. That's $70,000 to $80,000 for every $1 million in revenue that a small business is earning. Now, this number is put out by the SBA, the Small Business Administration, who has a lot of information on small businesses and a lot of advice for small businesses throughout the U.S., and their advice is often very valuable. And this is their opinion, but this information, the 7 to 8%, was put out in 2013. And while that may not seem like that long ago, today we're living in a drastically different world. I mean, we're post-COVID, kinda. We're post-Trump, mostly. Post-PPP, the related digital shift and all those things. So what we look at then for marketing took up a lot less space in the sales and marketing funnel. But buyers now, today, have a process for buying the thing they want. Whether the thing they want is a widget or a solution for their business, they have a process. And it's the way, by the way, they want to buy. It's not the way we want to sell. So it's important for our marketing and sales processes to align with the way our buyers want to buy. And just another thought on this topic, my buyers might be different than your buyers. So it's really important to know your own target market. But back to topic, buyers in general have become way more autonomous these days. They're more independent, more capable. They have access to more information before they make a purchase decision, before they even engage with your salespeople, because the buyers of today, they have the world at their fingertips. They research their decisions. They come to a potential purchase informed. And that's critical for you to understand. Today, there are a ton of ways to spend on marketing. And whether you're looking at billboards or magazines or newspapers or mobile or digital or social or SEO or pay-per-click, etc., there are a ton of different ways to spend money on marketing. This screenshot is John Wanamaker. You may be familiar with his quote, and if you're not, your marketing team probably is. And his saying is, more than 100 years ago, he said, half the money I spend on advertising is spent well, and half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half. And it's, back at, 100 years ago, when he said this, he was dealing with marketing in a completely different way. There was not really a way to track buyer behavior. You'd place an ad in a newspaper or TV, and you'd wait for weeks or months to see the impact of your marketing efforts. But today, everything is digital. Response, statistics, follow-up is immediate. We can place an ad or build a site or target an action and immediately see the response and pivot. If your money for marketing were my money for marketing, here's where I'd put it. And I won't read this list for you necessarily, but if you look through the list quickly, what you'd likely notice about it is that these solutions, these marketing avenues, are all digital. And this is because digital is cheaper now, but it also brings more value. Because now, as opposed to 100 years ago, now everything is tracked. Every click, every website visit, every eyeball on every Facebook post, everywhere the mouse hovered, everywhere the eyes are drawn on your website or your web properties is tracked. And so we can know fairly quickly what's working and what's not and act accordingly. So we don't need to waste money on marketing methods that are not working for your organization, for your market. We can pivot quickly and put more money toward marketing that does work and reap more ROI. If I were an ATM machine filled with marketing that every time you put $1 in, you got 10 back, wouldn't you start, stand at that ATM and keep depositing dollar bills because you're getting 10 back? So that's not to say that some businesses should not be spending money on billboards or car wraps or bus stops and print and all of that, because that might be suitable for some, but all of us should be investing in digital. That's what's common to businesses today. So this is not an all-inclusive list, but looking at this list, these are all digital. So there are still a ton of options of companies who want to take your money, right? So how do you prioritize where you spend to get the best ROI? And that's what today's conversation is about. So the last piece here that we're going to talk about is going to be the bulk of our conversation. That is when to spend where on marketing. And if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is basically an assessment of what's important to each individual person on earth. What is most important for a person in their personal priorities, their personal development. And number one, the bottom, the foundation of the pyramid is physiological. So air, water, food, shelter. Before adding anything else to their existence, a person's physiological needs are most important. That's the foundation of the pyramid in Maslow's hierarchy. Next comes safety, it's security, it's resources, health. If we don't have food or a place to sleep, that's most critical. But safety is the next priority on the list, how I maintain my life, my family, etc. The next stage after that, physiological and safety needs are met, is love and belonging. That's the next thing that people are typically drawn toward. It's what they're seeking. It's friendships, intimacy, family connection. Those sorts of things are next on the hierarchy of needs. And before we get our physiological needs, safety and love and belonging doesn't matter as much, right? So the next stage, once these are met, the first three, the next is esteem, how I'm perceived in my network, or it's even how I esteem myself. It's my respect, status, recognition, freedom. And then finally, once the previous levels are accomplished, at the top of the pyramid, where you see this figure exclaiming, victory over the pyramid, it's self-actualization, becoming the most that one can be. It's where you start to think beyond yourself and giving beyond yourself, beyond legacy. That's where you start thinking. So before you move on to the next stage along the pyramid of needs, so first you meet physiological needs first. Before these physiological needs are met, nothing else matters. Before physiological needs are met, love and belonging doesn't really matter. If all I need is a cheeseburger and a safe place to sleep, right? That's, physiological is most important. But marketing operates in a similar progression. We want to get our foundational needs met first before we start spending all over the place. We've had clients come to us who had spend. They were just trying the blanket approach, everything, spending everywhere on marketing, just all over the place, so that whatever their target or wherever their target happened to be, that their brands would be visible. But usually when it comes to marketing, that's not a great investment strategy. What we want to do is start with a foundation and then move on to the next stage when the foundational needs have been met. And then when our needs have been met in that stage, then we move on to the next. So the first foundational need for marketing is your website. And the website is first on the list because this is a web property that you own. It's not like a social platform that you're posting your content on and it's somebody else's network, and if they change the rules or they think you're not adhering to some community standards, they can shut you down and you lose all those years of content, right? You want to make sure that you maintain control of your environment, of your content, and you can control your website. So when the website meets the satisfactory standard for what's going to be productive for your business, whether that's visibility, does my target market know I exist? Whether that's conversion, am I communicating with them in a way that will produce revenue? Or if it's productivity, is the site streamlining manual effort? Then you can move on to the next step. And the next step is search engine optimization. So how do you get found by new audiences in search engines in Google? And I typically just target Google because they own search, really, and everyone else just follows suit. So if you're making Google happy, you're by default essentially making all the other platforms happy, generally. When you've got search engine ranking for the first page for some of your key search terms for your target audiences, for example. And after your needs in organic search are met, you could then start to look at search engine marketing. And SEM is less about organic marketing and more on paid ads. Paid search, people sometimes freak out because it costs dollars, but paid search helps track every aspect of a campaign and split test between the keywords that somebody is searching for, testing against a tagline or a headline, testing against a search keyword that somebody typed in to see your ad, testing against headline with ad copy, with a landing page that we're driving people to engage. We can split test at every point along the way to get really tight around what works best for your target market. So we start with search engine optimization, SEO, and oftentimes we'll pair with paid ads because we want to get some quick wins. But optimization is more valuable long term. It's earned, it's owned, it's longer lasting. So it's buying your home instead of renting. But search engine marketing, paid ads, is very, very valuable for specifics with which we can, number one, gain new audience members, and number two, measure people's behavior throughout their entire search and purchase journey. So next on the list is reputation management. How do people see you and your company? And this gets back to hierarchy of needs. When we start to build a community around us, other buyers will start to see social proof that others have done business with us, have approved or liked, or have had a positive experience with us. And that's going to improve our conversion rate. Next on the list after reputation is social media. Social media touches on social proof, but I mean social media as more of a distribution platform. How do I take my message and get it out into areas where I can be found by the masses, by my target audience masses? So first, when people are searching and then developing social proof among social media networks, that lends credibility to me as a business. And then when this need has been met in a viable manner, other marketing methods, we could start to consider those. When we've met the minimum viable status for social media, we can then go on to other marketing methods. And today that might include many different media. This is the car wrap, the billboard, the side of a bus. If you've already gotten presence digitally, then you may want to consider other forms of marketing, but only if it fits where your market is. So before you're diving into all these marketing avenues to get your brand known by your target audiences, you'll want to take a step back and make sure your website is actually meeting the standard of minimum viability. Before we spend money, time, and effort pushing out our messaging to our target markets, we need to be positioned to convert optimally. So at my company, when we're talking to a prospect or working with a new client, we look at their web presence, their internet presence as a whole, from a metric-driven perspective. Our process takes the subjective perspective out of play. So, like, do we like this website? Doesn't really matter. Is this website good? How do you know if the impression of one person's opinion versus another person's opinion is this good? How do you rate that? So we've worked with many clients in the past who have a very specific idea about what their website should look like, the colors or layouts used. And honestly, when somebody cares so much about a specific hue of green or a page layout that looks this way or another way, for a while we struggled to convince a client that we should let the market decide with their dollars. But over time, we've been able to take a step back and look at, for businesses approaching this consumer market or for this size B2B market, we're now able to determine ahead of time with a fair degree of certainty what is going to be effective at converting a client's lead to a prospect and their prospect to a client. We look at the entire customer journey, somebody that doesn't know our client exists, to know, like, and trust our client, to go to a website and take that next step. So what we often advise to our clients is to let the metrics or KPIs drive the design vision, because when we're allowed to let metrics drive design decisions, we get a lot better results, which is actually what our client is after. People stop caring so much about their specific favorite color of green or blue or whatever, and that's when they start to see results, which is really what they want. What they want is success. It's ROI. And these are the kinds of things we help our client with. So the questions we ask from the beginning are, where are you now? What are your goals? What would make an impact on on reaching that goal? And what's the extent of that impact? We look at these 7 factors, and we're going to step through these one by one in order to see how they impact a website's viability. So first, and probably most important, is user experience. What does the site design look like? What are the visual elements? How easy is it to navigate? What's the interaction look like? Is it easy for somebody to do what they came to your site to do? User experience is this. Each perspective has several factors contained within, and we can see here what contributed to the score of success, failure, what we can do to fix these specific issues, what contributed to the score, how we can address the score, what changes we should make in order to get a more acceptable score. And across this factor of user experience, what changes should I make to impact that to the positive so that my website in general will produce a higher score from the ROI. Next is conversion optimization. How well does a website take a lead who just comes across the site via search or social to become a prospect? How well does the site nurture that relationship to convert the prospect to a client or a customer? And we're looking at several factors here as well. So next we have content, format, and copy. This is the text that people read on the page. It's how you describe yourself in your target market and how that relationship is formed. Next, beyond that, is search engine optimization, SEO, in visibility online. How easy is your web presence to find for your target market when they have a need for your product or service? So how do you show up against your competitors? How do you show up with relevant content that's going to entice your target market to engage you? After that is performance and security. How does your site load? How quick is it to load? How secure is your website? When a visitor is going to fill out a form on your site, how secure is that information they're giving you? Our assessment will give you the details on this. There's also this free tool that you can check out, and that's gtmetrix.com, gtmetrix.com, and you can get an idea, really specific, about how well your site performs, how quickly it loads, any issues you may have with your site performance that may keep people from doing business with you. Next, we have accessibility, and this refers to the practice of ensuring your website is usable by people with differing levels of ability. So that might be people with sight or hearing disabilities. It might be somebody that doesn't have use of their arms or doesn't even have arms. Who knows? Websites and web browsers are now amazingly capable of serving people who are differently abled if there's proper attention paid to making that website content available to everyone. And finally, we look at legal. Does your web presence possess the appropriate levels of compliance with a regulatory body that you may need to comply with? So what levels of compliance should all companies meet, such as GDPR or CCPA, with regard to data and privacy, or professional services such as law firms or medical or financial space that have specific levels of compliance that they specifically need to meet in order to be in good standing with their regulatory body? We look at that as well. Many verticals need to ensure that they are meeting those regulatory standards so that they don't lose their bar license or their ability to do what they do for a living. We'd be happy to run this assessment on your web presence so you know what's going well, what opportunities you have to improve and how to do so, and get you on a path toward better revenue and profitability. Just go to dominate.marketing and select the assessment that is most relevant to where you are in your business. As always, I'm Rob Riggs with Code Conspirators, and I'm here to help.